The other players were there. Lexi Hall, obviously. So there was no Sid Colson, and no idea who that is with Sid Colson. Ari McDonald obviously was there as well. And look, we got no Caitlyn. And if we're being honest, she looked incredibly uncomfortable to be there last year. I think she just probably is not in the mood.
The WNBA just got a big surprise that nobody expected. While everyone was getting dressed up fancy for the orange carpet, their biggest star was nowhere to be seen. Caitlin Clark just did something super bold, and now the basketball league is trying really hard to figure out what happened. This whole thing is totally crazy and has never happened before. What do you think about Caitlin Clark not going to the orange carpet? Tell us what you think in the comments below. So here we are, everyone. The 2025 WNBA All-Star Weekend Orange Carpet Party happened, and guess who decided she had more important things to do? Yep, Caitlin Clark didn't show up at all, while her Indiana Fever teammates Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, Ari McDonald, and others came looking perfect for pictures. Clark was apparently doing anything else instead of being there.
I think she's probably not in the mood. I think the whole festivities of All-Star Weekend, I just don't think this is her scene anyway. I don't think this is somewhere which she wanted to be last year. If we can be honest, I do not think she wanted to be there last year. But I'm guessing all the comments, the 11 comments are going to be, where's Caitlin? Where's CC? Why didn't Caitlin go? She was at the CBA earlier. I would assume it's just been a lot on her plate. I don't think the CBA negotiations went well. I just think all around it might have just been too much, and she's like, you know what, I'm not going. I'm missing All-Star Weekend. I'm missing the 3-point contest. I backed out of the NBA 3-point contest.
Now, before we talk about the really interesting stuff, let's explain what this actually means. The orange carpet is like the WNBA's way of making a big fancy party. It's their special time to look good, get on TV and in newspapers, and show off their best players. But when the player everyone wants to see doesn't even come, that tells everyone something without her having to say a word. The thing is, Clark looked about as happy as a cat getting a bath during last year's orange carpet. Anyone who was watching could tell she didn't want to be there. She did what she was supposed to do, smiled when people took pictures, but you could tell she was waiting for it to be over so she could leave. So really, her not showing up this year shouldn't shock anyone who was actually watching what happened. But here's where things get really interesting. The WNBA has been using Caitlin Clark to help them way more than a surfer uses a big wave. They've pretty much made all their ads and promotions about her face, her name, and how she gets people to buy tickets. So when she chooses not to come to their big important party, it's not just what she wants to do. It's like she's telling everyone something important, and the people who run the WNBA are probably having really worried meetings right now.
Getting to go to the NBA All-Star Weekend and shoot against Steph Curry. She backed out of that. So I assume she's going to do that next year. I assume that's going to be the thing, but if Caitlin continues to shoot 20-something% from 3, I don't know if that's going to be still a thing.
Let's talk about what's really been going on with Clark these days. This girl has gotten hurt more times in the last few months than most basketball players get hurt in whole seasons. She's been having problems with her feet, her back hurts, and probably other stuff too. Ever since the team started practicing in April, she hasn't been healthy for even 10 days straight. Just think about that for a minute. She can't even go 10 days without something hurting on her body. For someone who's probably never been badly hurt before in her whole life, this must be really hard to deal with in her head. Basketball players, especially ones like Clark who really love the game, get super upset when they can't play. It messes up their thinking in ways that regular people who never played sports, that seriously, just can't get. Then there's this whole big business meeting thing that's been going totally wrong. The people who run the league basically forced Clark to come to these meetings like she was some kind of superhero who could fix everything and stop the league from shutting down. Talk about making someone feel like they have to carry the whole world on their back. Here's a player who's only in her second year and they're asking her to help decide what happens to the whole entire league. That's just not normal, and it's really not fair either. This business meeting situation is a huge disaster right now. there's a real chance that the WNBA could shut down completely, which means Clark might not get to play another healthy game until 2027. Just let that idea sit in your brain for a second. A player who obviously loves basketball more than anything else in her whole world might not get to play for years because the grown-ups can't figure out how to split up the money the right way. And let's talk about money. Here's the big problem everyone knows about but doesn't want to say out loud. Clark has been getting totally trashed on the internet this year. The mean comments have gotten twice as bad, maybe even 3 times worse than last season. Every time she misses a shot, people pick it apart like crazy. Every time she trips or falls down, people make jokes about it online. Every time she has a bad game, people start arguing about whether she's actually good or if everyone just said she was good for no reason.
An easy time right now, and I think a lot of people are, probably rightfully concerned, because it's one thing when you're healthy and everything's going well and you can brush off all the stuff when things are going well, because at the end of the day, she's a basketball player at the end of the day. I said at the end of the day twice, either way. She can brush off a lot of the stuff because the basketball was going so well. Like all the hate, and this year the hate is doubled. All it takes is a moment of weakness and logging onto Twitter. That's literally all it takes, is a moment of weakness and logging onto Twitter. And like, obviously people like Caitlyn has this superhuman ability to block everything out. Like, there's no guarantee that she's always going to have that superhuman ability. There's no guarantee there's not going to be times in people's lives times in her life where maybe it affects her. And look, at the end of the day, she's human.
Clark has been super tough in her mind during her whole career. She's ignored mean comments that would make most people want to quit and hide. But even really strong people have limits. There's only so much bad stuff someone can take before it starts hurting them. Smart people think Clark looked at this orange carpet thing and thought, you know what? I don't need this right now. And honestly, good for her. Why should she make herself go through another uncomfortable news event when she's already dealing with enough stress? Here's what's really going on behind the scenes. The WNBA has been wanting Clark to be everywhere at the same time. They want her at meetings, at news events, at special appearances. And oh yeah, also playing basketball really well while she's hurt. That's too much for anyone, no matter how good they are. The league has gotten so used to having Clark around that they forgot she's actually a real person with limits. They've been treating her like a marketing machine instead of a person who might sometimes need to step back and take care of herself. Well, surprise, she just reminded everyone that she has rules, and she's not scared to stick to them. This whole thing is perfect payback for how the WNBA has treated Clark since she joined the league. Instead of protecting their biggest star and making sure she stays healthy and happy, they've given her jobs that have nothing to do with basketball. Now they're learning what happens when you don't appreciate someone. The other players at the orange carpet probably had mixed feelings about Clark not being there. On one hand, they got more attention without her there. On the other hand, they know that Clark brings TV cameras to events, and without her, the news coverage is definitely going to be smaller. What makes this even more interesting is that Clark said no to the NBA three-point contest earlier this year because she wanted her first one to be in Indiana. She turned down a chance to shoot against Stephen Curry at NBA All-Star Weekend. If she's willing to skip that kind of chance, skipping a WNBA orange carpet is practically nothing. The timing of all this couldn't be worse for the league. They're already dealing with contract drama, not many people coming to games for teams that aren't the Indiana Fever, and general growing problems. Having their biggest star basically boycott a major event is like throwing gas on a fire that's already burning pretty hot. But here's the thing that nobody wants to admit. Clark skipping this event might actually be the best thing that could happen to her right now. She's been playing through injuries, dealing with constant pressure, and trying to meet everyone else's expectations while her own needs get ignored. The fact that Clark's teammates showed up without her also sends an interesting message. It shows that the Fever can handle news stuff without depending completely on their star player. Players like Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston got to shine on their own. Looking at Clark's shooting problems this season, it's clear that something isn't right. She's shooting in the 20s from three-point range, which is way below her usual numbers. When a shooter like Clark struggles that much, it's usually not just a bad streak. There's something wrong with her technique, and fixing technique problems takes time and patience. This whole orange carpet thing is really about respect. The WNBA has been using Clark to solve problems that existed long before she got there. Not many people coming to games? Put Clark on the advertising. Contract problems? Bring Clark to the meetings. News events being boring? Make sure Clark is there to get attention. But respect goes both ways. If the league wants Clark to carry their brand, they need to start treating her like the valuable person she is instead of taking her for granted. That means protecting her health, respecting her limits, and not assuming she'll just show up to everything because they ask. The instant payback angle is real here. The WNBA has spent so much time thinking about what Clark can do for them that they forgot to ask what they should be doing for her. Now, they're learning what happens when your biggest star decides she doesn't owe you her presence at every single event. What's really wild is that this probably won't be the last time something like this happens. Clark is learning that she has power in this relationship, and she's starting to use it. The league can either change their approach or keep dealing with situations where their marketing plans fall apart. Remember, this is someone who's been hurt 4 separate times in the last 2.5 months. 4 different injuries since training camp started. That's not normal wear and tear. That's a pattern that suggests something is seriously wrong, either with her training schedule, her workload, or just bad luck that keeps piling up. The mental stress of constantly getting hurt can't be ignored. Clark has gone from someone who was practically unbreakable in college to someone who can't string together 10 healthy days in a row. That kind of change would mess with anyone's head. And let's talk about the pressure she's been under to save the contract talks. Think about how crazy that is. You've got a second-year player being brought in to help solve work disputes that involve millions of dollars and the future of the entire league. That's not her job. Clark's absence from the orange carpet also shows how much the league has been depending on her for everything. When she doesn't show up, suddenly the event feels smaller, less important. That's not healthy for any league to be that dependent on one person. What's particularly interesting is how Clark has been handling the pressure differently this year compared to last year. Last year, she seemed to grit her teeth and push through everything. This year, she's starting to make choices that put her own well-being over other people's expectations. That's actually a sign of growing up and getting wiser. Learning to say no to things that don't help you is an important life skill, especially when you're dealing with the kind of pressure that comes with being a professional athlete. But here's what's really crazy about this whole situation. Clark said no to shooting in the NBA three-point contest because she wanted her first one to be special, to be in Indiana in front of her home crowd. That shows she's thinking long-term about her career and her legacy. If she's willing to turn down a chance to compete against Stephen Curry at the NBA All-Star Game, then skipping a WNBA orange carpet is nothing. It shows she has her priorities straight, and she's not going to be pressured into doing things just because other people think she should. The league is probably starting to realize that they can't just assume Clark will show up to everything they want her to. She's got her own plan, her own priorities, and her own limits. That's going to force them to rethink how they approach their relationship with their biggest star. The timing of this boycott is particularly brutal for the WNBA because it happened right before the All-Star Game. This is supposed to be their showcase weekend, their chance to get maximum news attention. Having their biggest draw skip the main promotional event is a public relations nightmare. But maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. Maybe the league needed a wake-up call about how they've been treating Clark. Sometimes you have to create a crisis to force people to pay attention to problems they've been ignoring. The bigger effects of this situation go beyond just one event or one player. It's about how professional sports leagues treat their stars, and what happens when those stars decide they've had enough. Clark is setting an example that other players are probably watching closely. The WNBA's response to this situation will be telling. Do they try to pressure Clark into attending future events? Do they respect her boundaries and work with her to find a balance? The smart move would be to work with Clark to figure out what she's comfortable with and what she's not. There's also the money aspect to consider. Clark brings in more revenue than any other player in the league. Her absence from events directly impacts ticket sales, merchandise sales, and news attention. The league can't afford to lose her, literally and figuratively. This situation also highlights the unique pressure that comes with being a game-changing athlete. Clark isn't just a good player. She's someone who's changed the entire landscape of women's basketball. That level of impact comes with expectations that most athletes never have to deal with. Looking at the bigger picture, this orange carpet boycott might be remembered as a turning point in Clark's career and in the WNBA. It's the moment when she stopped being a passive participant in other people's plans and started taking control of her own destiny. At the end of the day, Clark's orange carpet boycott is bigger than just one event. It's a signal that she's not going to be taken for granted anymore. She's not going to smile and nod her way through every obligation, while her own needs get pushed aside. The WNBA built their recent success on Clark's shoulders, and now they're learning that those shoulders come with a person attached. A person who gets injured, gets tired, gets frustrated, and occasionally decides she has better things to do than pose for pictures at events she doesn't want to attend. This is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket, and then forget to treat that basket with care. The league got comfortable assuming Clark would always be available for whatever they needed. Well, surprise again. She's not their personal marketing tool, and this orange carpet no-show is just the beginning of her setting those boundaries. The real question now is whether the WNBA learns from this or keeps making the same mistakes. Clark has shown she's willing to walk away from events that don't serve her interests. The ball is in the league's court to figure out how to keep their biggest star happy, while still getting what they need from her. And if they can't figure that out, well, they better get used to orange carpets without their main attraction. Because Clark has just demonstrated that she's perfectly willing to put herself first when the situation calls for it. The instant karma has hit, and now everyone has to deal with the consequences. So there you have it. Caitlin Clark just taught the WNBA a lesson they won't forget anytime soon. What do you think happens next? Will the league finally change their approach or keep making the same mistakes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button and subscribe for more basketball, drama, and analysis.